Sometimes I have plans to talk about things and then I'm like, no, I don't need to do that because surely by now people know that's a bad idea, right? And so I file it away in my list of video ideas and then it'll randomly pop back up. And this is one of those things. So today's video, I'm going to be talking about DIY cages. I think as pet owners, we can all agree that appropriate housing is really important for whatever animal you have. For rats, there's certain specific things that you should probably look for in an appropriate cage. And because of that, certain things that you can DIY are just not safe. And then other things I've seen could be safe or might be from the get-go. So we're going to talk about that now. So the most common and inappropriate kind of housing that I constantly see is cages made from wood. This can be a wooden frame, a wooden base, wooden shelves. The cage itself has been constructed from a dresser, a nightstand, a wooden hutch, a set of shelves, any of those things. The biggest issue with wood is that it absorbs ammonia odor, which means that your rats are breathing that in for the entirety of their lives. This is just a recipe for health issues such as URIs and pneumonia and things of that nature. And this can happen simply because the rats pee. Rats, even litter-trained ones, do mark, and wood absorbs that odor. The second reason that these aren't safe is because wood is a chewable material. In fact, we make toys with wood. There are houses and things made with wood. Wood is something they're encouraged to chew. You also have to consider that rats can chew through concrete. Wood is not hard at all to chew through. The next problem is that most wood converted furniture is not appropriately sized. So in the cases of some of these ones I'm going to pop up on the screen, they're just simply too small. They don't have a big enough floor space for the rats to actually run around. Rats need approximately 2.5 square feet per rat, and they do need unbroken floor space. A tall cage that's really narrow is not appropriate housing for them. The next problem is that most wooden furniture lacks enough ventilation. Now there's some exceptions to this, but that still doesn't make it appropriate housing because of all these other reasons. But a lot of times it's either just the front of the unit that is meshed, or sometimes it's the front and back, but then the back's up against a wall. This doesn't allow any cross ventilation, which is what you need to remove the ammonia and allow it to dissipate in the air. I've even seen some cages that have glass on the front, which is absolutely not rat safe at all. The next problem with DIY cages that are made of wood is that you really have to seal them in some way. But sealants are not made to be chewed on, so even if the sealant itself is non-toxic, this doesn't mean it's non-toxic if you chew it. It usually means for how it's aerosolized when you spray it on or paint it on, so that it's not going to hurt you if you're breathing those fumes in. And honestly, even still, it's not meant to be ingested in any way and is just not safe. I think the main reason that people choose a wooden cage conversion project is, first of all, it is beautiful if done well. And I'm not going to argue with that. It is gorgeous if done well, and it can be a fun project to do. Who doesn't love a fun project that comes out with a beautiful end result? But the unfortunate thing is that they're simply not suitable for our animals, and the way a cage looks should be secondary to what our animal needs. With all that said, I did manage to find some suitable DIY cages to show you. So let's talk about what makes a cage a suitable cage. First of all, it needs to be the appropriate size. We've discussed all of that. It needs to have proper cross ventilation. You need to have it enriched enough for the animal that's going to live in it. It needs to be appropriate, so if your animal is a climber, it's a tall cage. If your animal is fossorial, ground dwelling, then it needs to be a shorter cage. It also needs to have ways to give them natural behaviors. So in the case of rats, because they are ground dwelling and foraging, you need to be able to have a deep base so that you can put bedding in the cage. The last thing is it needs to be safe for the animal that's living in it. In the case of rats, the bar spacing needs to be small enough that they can't escape. It needs to be unable for them to chew out. It needs to also have the proper amount of clutter so that they can climb around without having any danger of falling or injuring themselves. The first one you've actually seen on my channel quite a few times, and that is a bin cage. Bin cages can be made in all different sizes. You can even stack them and attach them together with PVC pipe to make a multi-level cage, which can be really fun for your rats. These are totally fine for everyday living so long as they are big enough for the number of rats you are planning to house. I would say that my bin is probably suitable for about 3 rats all the time. I use it for more for short term, and that's totally fine. You'll also want to make sure that they are properly filled, just like you would fill up and enrich a regular cage. The next one that I found is wire closet shelving cages. You can cut these shelving pieces into various sizes. Some stores will even cut them for you. So you could measure the area that you need the cage to fit. And as long as it has enough floor space, you could have these shelves cut to exactly that size so that all you have to do is put them together. You can use metal zip ties, wire. I guess if your rats aren't super chewers, you could use regular zip ties too, though that seems a little risky to me. This group is made from PVC for the frame, and it has hardware cloth for the mesh parts. You can make these with deep pans and nice deep trays for the levels as well. This group's name comes from the cube storage and coroplast that is used to make them. You can make these using just the cube storage and coroplast, but often rats can squeeze out of the spacing on the cubes. So most people need to mesh these as well. These are great because the type of material makes them extremely configurable to whatever space you need to fill and can be changed later if you desire. These cages are made from metal shelving units that someone has affixed hardware cloth to and then added trays to allow for bedding in the bottom. I've never actually seen some of these in my area. They may be more common in other parts of the world or other areas. So I lumped a bunch of different kinds of cages together in this group. These are other DIY cages, starting with some made with a kiddie pool or a metal round base, and then they've been filled with bedding and stuff to do inside of the cages. Then we have these are made out of hardware cloth with a plastic storage tote as the base. This one has PVC frame and hardware cloth, I think. This one is amazing. It is a custom cage that someone had made. And then we've got some made from dog kennels. As long as these are meshed with hardware cloth, you can do a lot with these. The ones with the doors on the side are awesome. And then this one is some sort of metal, also hardware cloth, I believe. Thanks for watching. Bye.